6, the fundamental principles of material nature. And we're on text 20. Vishvam atmagatam yanjan kutosto jagat ankuruha svatejasatipattivram atmaprasvapanam tamaha Vishvam atmagatam yanjam Kutasto jagat ankuraha Svatejasapipattivram Atmaprasvapanam tamaha. Please chant. You chant.
Vishmamatma gatam vyanjan Kutosto jagadam kuraha
It's fine. Okay, word by word. Vishvam, the universe. Atmagatam, contained within itself. Vyanjan, manifesting. Kutastaha, unchangeable. Jagat ankuraha, the root of all cosmic manifestations. Svatejasa, by its own effulgence. Apibat, swallowed. Tivram, dense. Atmaprasvapanam, which had covered the Mahatattva. Tamaha, darkness. Translation, those divine graces, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Thus, after manifesting variegatedness, the effulgent Mahatattva, which contains all the universes within itself, which is the root of all cosmic manifestations, and which is not destroyed at the time of annihilation, swallows the darkness that covered the effulgence at the time of dissolution. Purport. Since the Supreme Personality of God is ever existing, all blissful and full of knowledge, His different energies are also ever existing in the dormant stage. Thus, when the Mahatattva was created, it manifested the material ego and swallowed up the darkness which covered the cosmic manifestation at the time of dissolution. This idea can be further explained. A person at night remains inactive, covered by the darkness of night. But when he is awakened in the morning, the covering of night, or the forgetfulness of the sleeping stage, disappears. Similarly, when the Mahatattva appears after the night of dissolution, the effulgence is manifested to exhibit the variegatedness of this material world. So I'll just read one more. Yat tat sattva gunam swacham shantam bhagavatapadam yad ahor vasudevakyam Chitam tan mahad atmakam. The mode of goodness, which is the clear, sober status of understanding the personality of Godhead, and which is generally called Vasudeva, or consciousness, becomes manifest in the Mahatattva. Purport. The Vasudeva manifestation, or the status of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called pure goodness, or Shuddha Sattva. In the Shuddha Sattva status, there is no infringement of the other qualities, namely passion and ignorance. In the Vedic literature, there is mention of the Lord's expansion as the four personalities of Godhead: Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Here, in the reappearance of the Mahatattva, the four expansions of Godhead occur. He who is seated within as Supersoul expands first as Vasudeva. The Vasudeva stage is free from infringement by material desires, and is the status in which one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the objective which is described in the Bhagavad Gita as Adbhuta. This is another feature of the Mahatattva. The Vasudeva expansion is also called Krishna consciousness, for it is free from all tinges of material passion and ignorance. This clear state of understanding helps one to know the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Vasudeva status is also explained in Bhagavad Gita as Kshetrajna, which refers to the knower of the field of activities as well as the super-knower. The living being who has occupied a particular type of body knows that body, but the super-knower, Vasudeva, knows not only a particular type of body, but also the field of activities in all the different varieties of bodies. In order to be situated in Krishna clear consciousness, or Krishna consciousness, one must worship Vasudeva. Vasudeva is Krishna alone. When Krishna or Vishnu is alone without the accompaniment of his internal energy, he is Vasudeva. When he is accompanied by his internal potency, he is called Dwarkadish. To have clear consciousness or Krishna consciousness, one has to worship Vasudeva. It is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita that after many, many births, one surrenders to Vasudeva. Such a great soul is very rare. In order to get release from the false ego, one has to worship Sankarshan. Sankarshan is also worshipped through Lord Shiva. The snakes which cover the body of Lord Shiva are representations of Sankarshan. Did you know that, Zach?
I heard that, but
Wasn't well remembered idea, fact. And Lord Shiva is always absorbed in meditation upon Sankarshan. One who is actually a worshipper of Lord Shiva as a devotee of Sankarshan can be released from false material ego. If one wants to get free from material disturbances, one has to worship Aniruddha. For this purpose, worship of the moon planet is also recommended in the Vedic literature. Similarly, to be fixed in one's intelligence, one has to worship Pradyumna, who is reached through the worship of Lord of Brahma. These matters are explained in Vedic literature. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So a pure devotee of Krishna, pure devotee of Radha Krishna, they are always feeling that they need the protection of Krishna, which is interesting because sometimes people, you could say, who aren't exactly on that, super pure platform of pure devotional service and to Krishna, or somebody who's newer devotees, you could say, they don't personally feel they need that protection all the time. They think, oh well, I'm a pretty strong guy, I'm a pretty sound guy or woman, and spiritually strong and so on. I could kind of deal with this situation, that situation, or whatever it may be. But it's interesting because of the pure devotee, even though by definition they're a pure devotee, they're always absorbed in thinking of Krishna and fully Krishna conscious. They feel they need the protection. And Srila Prabhupada, I'm sure many have heard, or maybe all, this time where Prabhupada, he was praying to the deities, Radha Krishna deities. I don't know where it was, in Detroit or somewhere, but he was praying, and devotees asked him, "Oh, what are you praying for, Srila Prabhupada?" He said, "Oh, I'm praying to Srimati Radharani that I don't fall down." And then devotee said, "Oh, Prabhupada, you said that you couldn't fall down, or pure devotee doesn't fall down." And he said, "Yeah, I can't fall down because I'm always praying, that I won't fall down." Because he's always in that mood of, seeking the protection. And also, in the life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I was listening to a lecture by my spiritual master, and he was explaining that one devotee asked a question to him, my spiritual master, and the question was referring to devotees in general, their particular attraction to different forms of Krishna, different forms of the Lord, right? And some devotees are attracted to Ramchandra, some devotees are attracted to Krishna, Radha Krishna, some devotees are attracted to Nrsingadev. And this devotee was asking the question that, for those who are maybe really tormented by material desires, or they're trying to get free of some type of fear, then they may, in other words, they're kind of materially struggling, then they may be inclined to worship Lord Nrsingadev. And my spiritual master, so that devotee was wondering if that was true or like that. He was wanting my spiritual master's comment on that. So my spiritual master brought up the point that Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself, he had a Govardhan Shila, which he would worship for, you could say, like the meditating on the Krishna's pastimes and the sweetness like that. And he also had a deity of Lord Nrsingadev, Shila of Lord Nrsingadev, for protection. So it's not that just because only a particular type. I mean, devotees such as Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they were seeking that protection from Lord Nrsingadev. It wasn't just some ordinary kind of you could say neophyte type of bhakta that was seeking, that only seeks the protection of Nrsingadev. Even Bhaktivinoda Thakur does. So this idea of us being careful in the execution of devotional service can never be underemphasized or understressed. And Prabhupada gave the example that it's like devotional service is like a razor. You could cut your face, very nicely, right? Shave the head or whatever very nicely, but also it could cause, you could get a really big gash. Like, I'll never use a straight edge razor again in my life. Because years ago I tried to use one and didn't work out too well. Because you have to, it has to be at a certain angle and like that. I was trying to shave my head, and one devotee, he had one of those and he was letting me borrow, but that didn't work out so well. And then a devotee tried to help me actually, and he wasn't so expert either. So I got a double scrape. Madhavendra Puri, he tried to help me. So I'm not going to use those again. But yeah, we have to be very careful. It's like that. Either be either nice or a disaster. So therefore the devotees, it's mentioned in the different modes of material nature and how we're meant to come gradually to the Shuddha-sattva stage of the pure goodness, in which there's no infringement of the other modes of ignorance or passion. So with, you could say, ordinary goodness, not pure goodness, with goodness, there's this influence, there could be this influence of ignorance and passion that come along. So like within our life, sometimes we may be, predominantly in the mode of, or we may be kind of functioning under goodness, right? But then sometimes we may fall under passion or ignorance. We become very angry or whatever it may be. We fall under different modes. So the idea is to try to be situated in the mode of goodness and alongside practicing the aspects of Krishna consciousness, and then gradually we go more into Shuddha Sattva, which is an interesting point because it's not that okay, we wake up one day and all of a sudden we're in pure goodness, or even in regular goodness, but it's a gradual thing, which you could say comes in stages. Just like in the description of Uttama Adhikari, or Madhyama Adhikari, or Kanishta Adhikari, even amongst those stages, it's not so black and white. It's not that, okay, yesterday I was a Madhyama Adhikari, now today I'm a Uttama Adhikari, or something like that. But for example, like within the Uttama Adhikari, you could say that there's Kanishta Uttama, there's Madhyam Uttama, then there's Uttama Uttama. Uttama means the highest, right? So it's like that with Krishna consciousness in general too. That sometimes we're in Maya, and sometimes we're in Krishna consciousness, and we go back and forth. But as time goes on, we will spend more and more time in Krishna consciousness, hopefully, and less time in Maya consciousness until the complete transfer has been made. Right? I was just remembering my spiritual master. He was walking with Srila Prabhupada on Juhu Beach, and they're walking, and my Srila Prabhupada was telling him that, oh, you're a very good public relations man, because he would speak with so many people in society, government officials and this and that. And my spiritual master said, oh, well, but sometimes, Prabhupada, I feel like it turns into Maya, because whatever he may be thinking, like he gets proud from the interactions of the big people he's talking to, wherever it may be. He said, sometimes I feel that's in Maya, that becomes Maya. And then Prabhupada stopped and he said, Maya? He said, you're always in Maya. Kind of said that. And then he just kept on walking. And my spiritual master said, Prabhupada kept on walking, and then he just stopped there and offered his obeisances. And he was happy that Prabhupada, you could say, put him in his place as a disciple. Because that's the business of the spiritual master, actually. To find fault with the disciple and correct them. That's the business. And the problem comes when sometimes people, they want to be guru a little bit too soon, It's like they want to be the guru a little bit too soon, and they start pointing out faults with everybody, but they're actually not, you could say, a guru, practicing what they preach and so on. So the spiritual master, he finds fault with the disciples to raise the disciples. What's the whole point? Why is he finding fault? The whole point is to raise the disciples from the mode of ignorance and passion, like that, and even goodness, to Shuddha Sattva. That's the whole point. So it's not like the spiritual master is some person who, just loves giving people a hard time, and they have nothing better else to do with their time, and right. Because the fact is, in some ways, on some angle of vision, they actually do have better things to do. On one angle of vision, like their relationship with Krishna, or reading the srimadbhagavatam, or chanting the holy names. So on one angle of vision, they actually do have better stuff to do. But out of mercy, out of compassion, and from another angle of vision, this is the most important thing to do, that the spiritual master helps the disciples. Once I was over at Dravida Prabhu's, and my spiritual master was visiting, and I made some mistakes, and he corrected me. And I was scheduled to cook breakfast for him, which is simple. I didn't think I could make. I didn't think I could mess this one up, but I did. And the backstory behind this is that I was supposed to spend a few days with him, and I did do that. I ended up doing that, but I didn't get some things covered, and I was supposed to be there at a particular time to meet him up at my godbrother's house, and I wasn't there, and like that. So I made a mistake because I wasn't there on time. So anyways, I was there, and I was cooking, oatmeal and some pears on the side. And with that preparation, you're supposed to put cloves. Put cloves, little cloves. And cloves are very strong. So anyways, I was serving them oatmeal and, the pears and the cloves. And then he said, okay, can you bring the rest of the pears, right? Because you put the cloves in the pears. So then I brought the rest of the pears with the cloves in them. And then there was like probably 10 cloves in the pears. This is a few years ago, but hopefully I developed a little bit more sense than back then a few years ago. But there's about 10 cloves. It was really strong. So, and then he looked at me. He said, that's way too much. He said, Balaram, this isn't just my food. This is my medicine. And I felt really bad because you could. He said, this is my medicine. Because, his health condition, and it's not just eating for, the satisfaction of the tongue or whatever. So, and then, I felt bad. I said, sorry, this and that. And he said, one thing is I give you an instruction, and you fail to do it. He said, that's a mistake in the mode of ignorance. And then he was referring to that time where I didn't meet him. I didn't make proper arrangements. That's, what he was referring to. And then he said, another one is I give you an instruction and you speculate how to do it. He said, that's a mistake in the mode of passion, which I just made the mistake because I speculated, how many cloves to put in. Which, anyways, I thought I was doing the right thing, and I misheard the person who told me or whatever it was. So it's a mistake in the mode of passion, speculation. And then he said, he didn't mention mistake in the mode of goodness, but He said, we want to come to the platform where we make no mistakes, which is interesting. So he said, you need to work on that. I said, okay. And then I left. And then, what is it? There was too many. Yeah, too many. So I speculated on how many there were, but it was too many. So then later next few minutes he called me and he said, I'm pretty much somewhat apologetic. He said, I hope you don't mind, and please don't feel bad. It's just my duty like that. And he said you could go take prasadam at the temple or something like that. So yeah, but I thought that's interesting because the mistake in the mode of ignorance is that the spiritual master or the spiritual master's, you could say representatives or shiksha gurus or whatever it may be, they give some instruction and it's just complete failure to execute it, And we probably all have our examples. And then the speculation, speculating how to do something. How to follow a particular instruction. That's also, things are done in a there's the right way and a wrong way to do things. With deity worship, the spiritual master he engages us in deity worship, and then we speculate. Okay, well, we want to whatever. I think Krishna wants to wear a beanie today or something. How or whatever he's saying Sanasu. Or Radharani wants a flute or something like that. So it's like a speculation in which we're not following the instructions, or like book distribution, for example. There's so many devotees who know how to do it, and they know how to do it good. And there's a proper way and improper way to do it. So we have the book distribution minister right here. He knows the proper way, if you're wondering. In other words, like speculating, like we could go out and say, here's a book, and by the way, I'm also collecting some money for Bangladesh. Please give a donation. Or devotees say, What did they say ISKCON stand for? Bajranayan Swami said ISKCON stand for International Society for
King,
what is it?
Christ of Nazareth.
Yeah, kids and children or whatever. Kings, what is it?
International Society for the King Christ of Nazareth.
Yeah, something like that. So in other words, devotees are just out there making stuff up, speculating. And also, there's so many lines. I mean, unfortunately, I heard somewhat recently, within the last few years, devotees using weird lines, inappropriate lines. And I heard about that, and some devotees in SanDiego were thinking of using them, and I said, "Don't do that. That's horrible." Those types of lines. It was inappropriate, lines. Pretty much, a male devotee distributing books is flattering a Mataji, a woman, with the idea of selling a book. And yeah, they said it worked, but it's not good for the brahmachari, for God's sake, and it's the last thing we want to do. And it's also it's bad publicity. It's just horrible, actually. So that's speculation. And Rupa Goswami says that to engage in devotional service in a speculative way, or just not to engage in it, but specifically in a speculative way, he said it's just a cause of disturbance in society. Right? It says Shruti, Smriti, Purana, di Pancharatra Vidim Vina. That everything has to be guided by the Vedas, Shruti, Smriti, all the the bhakti scriptures. And if they're not, then it turns into something weird. That's what happened. Actually, a few hundred years ago, within the time frame of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that people, they thought of Vaishnavism, they thought, oh, this is just a bunch of crazy, insane people, not following any moral principles, chanting Radha Krishna's name, but doing all types of horrible things. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a hard time even finding Chaitanya Charitamrita. It was so, practically Vaishnavism was, fading out, almost lost. But he revived it like that. So whether it's in a particular temple or within our lives, or what to speak of the whole, ISKCON, it's our duty, especially, it's on an individual platform, to follow very nicely. And even if we can't follow, or if we we have a hard time following, we shouldn't resent the principles. In other words, we should understand what is the standard and not just try to adjust it. Okay, well, adjust it to our liking. And in this way, gradually, we come up out of the different modes of nature, and we come more to pure Krishna consciousness. So the people who say they're God, they are absolutely bewildered by illusion, bewildered by their own energy. It's not really their energy, but they're bewildered by illusion. And why is that? Because they are not in control. They're hardly control of anything, really. For example, it says that Krishna's he's conscious of all the pain. He's conscious of everything that's going on in everybody's body, right? Like, I don't know what's going on in Zach's body right now. He knows, but I don't know. But Krishna knows everything, what's going on. So people who say God, there's so many, you could say, holes in the or so many just ridiculous things that don't make any sense for people who think like that, that they're God. It's really insane, actually. And in this point of surrender, so it says one who in the Bhagavad Gita, that after many, many births, one surrenders to Vasudeva. Such a great soul is very rare. So we may be one of those rare souls that either is surrendered, or, if we are surrendered, we don't think we're surrendered, but we may be one of those rare souls who want to surrender, right? And who are actually coming close to it. But one thing is if we come in contact with one of those rare souls who have actually surrendered to Krishna, then we should be very eager and very enthusiastic to serve them somehow or other. Help them in their mission. Help them. That's the point. Everybody needs help, actually. For the most part, everybody needs help. Everybody, even if they don't help, even if they don't need help, we should try to help. Even if they don't want it. Because it is by that association that we, by association with the great, we become great. By the association of one who has a taste for Krishna, we have a taste. That's how it all happens. Zach could quote the verse, right? What's the verse? Don't be shy, Zach. This is your time to quote the verse. So what is that, the translation?
The root cause of devotion service for Krishna is association with advanced devotees. Even when one comes to the stage of Krishna prema, association with devotees is still most essential.
Yeah, so the root cause of Krishna conscious devotional service is association with advanced devotees. And even when one comes to the level of pure devotional service, it's the most essential. So that's the root cause, that association. So if we want Krishna consciousness, then it's very simply explained how do we get it, and we get it by association with devotees who are fired up. That's how we get it. And the fact is, people, some people, surrender to God. Oh, I don't like that idea. But people are surrendering every day, all the time. I mean, everybody actually. People surrender to sleep. They're tired and they surrender to sleep. Or what to speak of hunger. People every day people surrender. Breathing. We're so dependent on the air, so we're completely dependent actually on the sun, everything. Rain. We're so dependent. We're dependent beings. And in relationships, I mean, when people get married, it's not. There has to be some compromising there. For example, if a man he wants to, he has an idea, he wants to paint the wall a particular color in the house or something. Sorry for the example, but or he wants to put a particular picture up, even of Krishna or even of Prabhupada. And they say, then they'll say the wife may say, "Oh, I don't like that picture. I want the other picture." And he may have to, budge. So he's surrendering. He's surrendering his independence, right? So people are surrendering all the time, but the great soul, who is very rare, they surrender to Krishna. And in relation to all these, this Srila Prabhupada mentions in the last paragraph about one who worships Sankarshan, through Lord Shiva, and then worshiping Lord Brahma and Aniruddha, and all these different forms. Practically speaking, I know very few devotees who. I know very few devotees who, to fix their intelligence, they worship Pradyumna, through Lord Brahma. Or to get free from their mental disturbances, they worship Aniruddha. Maybe some, but most of the devotees I met didn't do that. They're not doing that. So Srila Prabhupada made it very simple in the sense that even in the Bhagavatam it says that. It says, okay, if you want a good wife, you worship this demigod you want like that. And it goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And at the last it says, concluding that, it says, Akama sarva kamava moksha kamudadadi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. That whether akama sarva kamava, akama, whether we have no material desires, akama sarva, whether we have all material desires, moksha, or whether we're desiring liberation, kama sarva kamava moksha Tivrena bhakti yogena. So it says, with intense devotion, we should worship Krishna. That's what it says. That's what the Bhagavatam's pointing at. Krishna. Shamasundar Krishna. Radha Shamasundar. Because by that worship, he'll work things out. So whether he fulfills the material desires or whether or not, or whether he fulfills the material desires in such a way that we don't want it ever again. But in other words, he works it out. He knows best, right? Krishna knows best. So, yeah, we just worship Krishna, Radha Krishna, of course, Gornitai and other. And the last thing is that, from that verse in the, it's interesting, I just opened up Bhagavad Gita and it says, Akama Sarva Kama Va. That verse is quoted. But that verse, Bahunam Janmatam Ante, about the rare soul surrenders to Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that in the beginning, it says that when one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there's some leaning towards impersonalism. But when one is further advanced, he can understand that there are activities in the spiritual life and that these activities constitute devotional service. So with impersonalists, I mean, the traditional impersonalists, they're just studying Vedanta, eating very simply, sleeping very simply, studying Vedanta. And they think all these other devotional activities that we do, for example, are Maya and they're just unnecessary, right? It's called impersonalism. So Srila Prabhupada's mentioned in the purport that in the beginning, when one's trying to give up that attachment, there's a leaning towards that. That oh, well, devotional service doesn't really constitute activities, but it does. And devotees are really engaged. I mean, if you see devotees who are you see devotees who are fixed up in Krishna consciousness, they're so engaged. They're engaged to a point where, they don't have any time for anything else, They wake up, attend the morning program, whatever, they have their services, they go on books, they do the deity worship with this or that, whatever they're doing, speaking with people, This is, for example, like Tukram. I talked to him yesterday, and I was impressed by by what he told me. Of course, he didn't come. Anyway, so there's a misunderstanding. It wasn't his fault, but it was a misunderstanding. He didn't come. So luckily Vijay Prabhu is here. But he said that, I thought that Ram Vijay was in the afternoon. So my plan was I was going to do this marriage. And of course, he's marrying devotees. He's probably given a talk there too about Krishna consciousness in general. But he said, I was going to do this marriage, and then I was going to zip down to SanDiego, and I was going to give the talk at the picnic, about Ram Vijay. And I was going to zip back up to Long Beach and give the class there at the temple at 7 p.m. And I said, that sounds like a busy day. Sounds fun. But he wasn't thinking, I got to kind of, I can't do it all. But he wanted to do it all because he wanted to be engaged. He understood. He understands that I need to be engaged. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the last Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says that quoting that the 6 aspects of surrender, anukulyasa sankalpa, pratikulyasa varjanam, the divisions of surrender are acceptance of those things favorable to devotional service, rejection of unfavorable things, the conviction that Krishna will give protection, the acceptance of the Lord as one's gardener and master, full self-surrender and humility. So yeah, these things are really just aspects of, you could say, the devotee has developed affection or love for Krishna, and naturally they'll do these things, There's certain things that Krishna doesn't like, okay, I won't engage in them, because I love Krishna, and I want to please him. And so on, so on, so on. So the surrender process is not like a, biting of the lip and horrible thing, but it's based on, you could say, pure love and affection that the devotee naturally surrenders, which is actually a very wonderful thing. So, does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes, Larry. Thank you.
You're saying a pure devotee always feels like they need the protection of Krishna.
That's right.
But that's not absolutely true, right? Because when, for example, Mother Yashoda, she's a pure devotee. She feels like she always needs to protect Krishna.
Yeah.
So if you're in the parental rasa, then it's the opposite. Be true.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And then also in the conjugal rasa, since it's the highest rasa.
No, but then also when the Indra came and Indra's going down, then